was a pleasure to meet many of you last night at the welcome reception. For those of you who didn't make it and are here today, welcome. My name is Kyleigh LiPira. I'm the CEO of the Melanoma Research Foundation. I have been with the foundation for almost 10 years. Prior to that, I was at Johns Hopkins for about 10 years, and I've had the pleasure of working with the ocular melanoma community since we started the Cure program. So it is wonderful to see you all here today in person, and to our 50+ people who are also joining us via Zoom from all over the US and internationally. So we're really thrilled to have over 130 people that are participating in the sessions for the next couple of days. And it's certainly wonderful for you all to come together and meet each other. I think that is really one of the fundamental reasons why we have this symposium every year, is to really create that community and that support system for you all as well. So before we kick things off today, I just have a few logistics housekeeping items. We are going to be sharing a ton of information over the next couple of days. If at any point you feel overwhelmed, you need a break, again, please feel free, step outside, grab a snack. We have 2 social workers who are going to be with us all weekend. One is on our staff, Miriam, Kadosh. Miriam, can you just raise your hand? Miriam's a licensed social worker. Grab Miriam if you want to chat. We also have Sarah Lynn Campbell. Sarah is on our advocacy team at the MRF. Grab me. Again, we're here to support you. So again, feel free. You can always step outside. It's not interrupting the program at all. Bathrooms, also a very critical question. You're going to go out the door and to the left for women's, and men's is on the other side. So very, very close. We have 2 tracks for the next couple of days. So track 2 starts to break out at 9:30, and it's an art therapy session. And that's going to be held out and to the left. You'll see an open door. That's where that art therapy is going to be held. It's in room 203. So anytime you see track 2, it's going to be in that room. Let me see all my lists. Okay, on your table, you also have a Wi-Fi. There's a little card with all the Wi-Fi information if you need that. We also have water in the back of the room if you need to grab water at any point. We have surveys on all your tables. These are surveys for each session, and we would love for you all to fill them out, because that's how we get the feedback to build the programs every year. So topics you like, things you want to hear about. Again, we're doing education throughout the year on ocular melanoma. So this just gives us the feedback we need to really, really build out our program the best way possible to meet your needs. So before I officially kick things off, I wanted to introduce the planning committee. So every year we engage with patients and caregivers to plan this event. And I would love if the planning committee could just stand and be recognized for all their hard work in planning this year's event. Could you guys just stand for me? Thank you all so much. And if you're interested in participating in next year's planning committee, please talk to Miriam. We would love to have you guys. We'd love to get your input as we plan next year's event. So lastly, before I dive in, all of this is also being recorded. So if you feel like you need a minute, you want to step out, you want to go up to your room and take a 15-minute nap or whatever it is, you're not going to miss anything, because we're recording it all. And it's going to be available on our website after, so you guys can also go back and say, what did they say about this? And all that information is going to be available to you. So don't worry about that at all. So with that, I just wanted to give some brief opening remarks. And before I do, I want to thank our incredible industry sponsors who have supported this event, who support our ocular melanoma program, who are actually here in this room. So if you are an industry sponsor, could you just stand so we can know who you all are? Thank you. So these are all the companies that are developing the future of ocular melanoma, drug development and treatment options. So I would also encourage all of you During the breaks, talk to them, pick their brains, ask them all the burning questions that you think about at night. I mean, that's why they're here. So please don't miss out on that amazing opportunity for access to some of these companies. So with that, I'm just going to give a little schedule for the weekend. All of this is in your program as well that you have on your tables. And again, we have some really exciting things lined up for you all, some very dynamic speakers. There's absolutely incredible things happening here in Cleveland that I know you all are going to be really excited to learn about. So I wanted to give a little highlight on who we are as a foundation. So the Melanoma Research Foundation was founded in 1996 by a patient. Her name was Diana Ashby, and she was dealing with her third recurrence of cutaneous or skin melanoma. And at that time, there were only 3 FDA-approved drugs to treat metastatic melanoma. And unfortunately, there weren't too many people in the research space because it was pretty bleak at that time. Nobody wanted to go into melanoma research. And she really decided that that was not good enough, that the status quo was not gonna work, and it wasn't gonna help her, but she could probably help future generations of people. So she started fundraising with her family and friends and formed the Melanoma Research Foundation in 1996. And in 1998, we gave out our first research grant. And the foundation since then has been a completely independent organization. We're not a family foundation. We are completely independent, and we have a board that is comprised of 60% melanoma survivors and 40% caregivers. And all of them, in fact, Patty Popel, one of our board members, is here today, based in Cleveland. If you want to learn a little bit more about the board, you can talk to Patty, but our board is completely dedicated to moving our mission forward because they live it every single day. So I think that's really important to have that independence. So who we are today, you learned about where we started. So thankfully, there has been incredible development in research in melanoma over the last 20 plus years. And now we have many FDA approved treatments to treat cutaneous or skin melanoma. And we have 2 FDA approvals for uveal melanoma. And as the research developed, so did our mission. So we realized we can't just fund research, we have to educate and empower patients so that they make the right decisions, so that they know what are the questions to ask their doctor, how to find resources, what is a clinical trial, what clinical trial would be relevant for them. So our mission evolved to not just funding research, but educating and empowering patients and caregivers and the general public to create awareness about melanoma and its rarer forms. In addition, as anybody who's been watching the news lately, there's a lot going on the policy side. So we also learned that we can't exist in a vacuum. We have to advocate for patients and caregivers, and we need to talk to lawmakers about the disease and the access issues and the need for federal funding for research. So we have a tripartite mission. It's not just research, it's not just education, it's not just advocacy, it's all 3. Those are the 3 pillars of what we do. So CureOM is a program within the Melanoma Research Foundation, and it was founded in 2011, and it was also founded by a patient and his wife. Greg Strax was dealing with a uveal melanoma diagnosis. He was young, he was in medical school, and at the time, he and his wife, Sarah, found really no options. The clinicians weren't talking to each other. There were no FDA-approved drugs. So they came to the Melanoma Research and Foundation and said, we want to mirror your mission, but specifically for uveal melanoma. So that's what we created. So our CureOM program does the same thing. It funds research, it educates OM patients and their loved ones, it advocates for the policies that impact rare forms of melanoma like uveal, acral, pediatric, AYA, and that's the CureOM program. So our footprint today, again, we started off very grassroots back in 1996, and today we're national. So we have events all over the country. We have advocates and patients all over the country. We host 6 of these for cutaneous or skin melanoma all over the country as well. So we are doing a lot of education and a lot of interaction. And again, always in partnerships with academic centers like the Cleveland Clinic that we're going to hear more from today. Let's see. So I'm going to briefly just touch on our research program because I think, again, it's incredibly relevant to what we're going to be learning about today. So to date, we have funded over $26 million in peer-reviewed research, which is a lot, and that is going to academic centers, and it's a very rigorous and competitive process. And I'll talk probably a couple times about how we involve advocates, you all, in that process, because it's critical that your voice is included in reviewing these grants and these opportunities, of which we have funded the entire spectrum of research. So we fund the most senior people who are advanced in their careers and have multiple funding sources, all the way down to medical students who are just learning about melanoma and beginning their careers. And we find that that is incredibly impactful. And all of this over the last, 28 years has led to not only FDA approved drugs, but patents, collaborations, and increased knowledge in the field, which is, again, what we want. So for CureOM specifically, we have funded over 2.6 million in peer-reviewed grants. We have gotten uveal melanoma into the TCGA. We host global science meetings where we convene incredible researchers, all dedicated to uveal melanoma, at major conferences. So for example, there's a conference called the Society of Melanoma Research. We're convening a global conference there with researchers from all over the globe to talk about ways that they can collaborate and move options forward for patients. We also have a vision registry, which is a patient-powered registry where you all put in your data to help inform us of your experience that we can then translate into research projects, which is really exciting. So again, just some of the CureOM research grants specifically, we've funded Team Science Awards, so multiple clinicians from different institutions all working together on one project. We've funded more established people, again, all the way down to residents and fellows, all in uveal melanoma. Education, I talked about this earlier, that's what we're doing today, but there's many other educational opportunities for you all. We have webinars, we have monthly Ask the Experts. We do those on Facebook and then they're recorded after. We have great literature on the table outside if you need more resources. Our industry partners have also supplied some really great information specifically about their company and their drugs or devices. So that is all outside for you guys to pick up as well. And again, all of our stuff is on demand. So never feel like if you missed something, you're never going to see it again because it's all available to you. I mentioned the Ask the Expert already. For those of you in Cleveland, this is another great way to engage. We have our Miles for Melanoma 5K coming up in August. So if you're local and you're here, Patty actually chairs the event. She's a great resource if you have questions. We have over 1,000 people attend this event. So it is a huge event and it's another way to build community and for patients to meet each other and connect. And we have CureOM teams at all of our Miles for Melanoma events. So you can feel free to join those. We also have support groups. We're going to be talking about these probably multiple times throughout the weekend. If you have questions about support groups, Miriam leads them. So please reach out to her with any questions. But these are a great way to, again, interact and engage with fellow patients and caregivers. Advocacy, I mentioned a little bit earlier. There's a couple ways to engage in our advocacy, and we're doing a lot of calls to action right now because of some of the threats to federal funding, specifically for cancer research. We have our annual Hill Day. We just had it in March, and we have been very active ever since, meeting with lawmakers and really advocating for not only cancer research funding, but maintained cancer research funding. If you are interested in anything with our advocacy program, please talk to Sarah Lawn. She can help activate you in terms of what you can do in your own community, meeting with your local lawmakers and talking to them about some of these issues. It really does start at a grassroots level, especially with advocacy, meeting with your local representatives. So she can help you with that and also give you more insight to what we're doing on a state-by-state level if you're curious as to what's happening in your own state. So one of the other big things that the MRF does is create awareness. We know we can't prevent uveal melanoma, or we don't know how to prevent uveal melanoma, but creating awareness about the disease is really critical. Also creating awareness about eye health in general is really important. So we have a campaign called #IGetDilated. We promote this campaign in November of every year, as well as in May during Melanoma Awareness Month. We have a lot of pieces that you can take to your local eye doctor. You can give out at schools. Again, many people who are diagnosed, they might have had 20/20 vision and never gone to an eye doctor before, right? So it's really important that we get the word out. Again, we can't tell you how many people say, I was so surprised. I never even heard of this disease before. I didn't even know it existed. So really, really critical to create that general public health awareness. We also have campaigns for, again, our cutaneous melanoma campaign, #GetNaked, checking your own skin, learning how to do self-skin exams, going to your dermatologist on a yearly basis, as well as other rare forms of melanoma, like our pediatric melanoma program and our mucosal melanoma program. So just a couple of resources for you all to take advantage of. If you haven't signed up, you can go on our website and certainly do so. We do have a quarterly newsletter called the Eye on OM, which just features information relevant to our ocular melanoma community. So if you haven't done so, please make sure you sign up. We also have a texting program. Again, you have to self-select to sign in, but if you want to get texts from us about everything from sign-on letters that you can engage with for local policymakers, ways to make a donation, events happening in your community, and you're a big text person and want to get information that way because your email is unruly, this is the way to do it. You can scan that QR code. And then tagging us. So we have many social media handles. They're all right there. And we encourage you all, because so many people engage on social media as well, to make sure that you're following us and sharing some of the resources that we're providing to you all. So again, really, really vitally important to sort of get the information out there as well. So with that, I am really excited because you all have some amazing and dynamic speakers that are going to be with you today. But before we kick things off, I do want to introduce someone very special who I had the privilege of having dinner with last night with his lovely wife at his home, Dr. Arun Singh. Dr. Singh is the professor of ophthalmology and the head of the Cleveland Clinic Cole Eye Institute here at the clinic, and has really done an incredible job of preparing a dynamic program for us this weekend. So Dr. Singh.
Thank you very much. First of all, it's a great privilege and honor that you're all here. As you may know, I see some of my patients here. I don't like to speak a lot. But I do want to say, this is a rare opportunity where we actually express gratitude to our patients. All the time, patients will thank us for whatever we do, good or bad or limited. But this is a rare opportunity where it's the other way around, where we say we express gratitude because we learn so many things from you, and you give the purpose to our work. If you, for whatever reason, you didn't choose to be my patient, and I thought you never would be my patient, but you are my patient and I'm your caregiver for whatever reason. This is the chance that I can say, we also learn from you a lot. And going forward, we say in the ocular oncology, I've been doing this for 30 years and 21 years or so at the clinic. I think this is the most exciting time. And I can tell you in the next 5 years, it's going to be very different how we as caregivers think about uveal melanoma and how we counsel our patients and how we treat our patients. Some of it is coming from basic research, for which the funding is going less and less. Second is coming from the industry partners, which we never had for all these years. So you have this great industry supporters from IDEA, Aura, Immunocore, and others. And there's a reason for it. And we'll get into that tomorrow. We're talking about the trials. So there's a very bright future. And I really think for like 25 years, we kept doing the same old stuff. And now I'm activated to say, wow. And so this kind of convergence, you have advocacy, industry, and we're limited what we can do, I think is really what would transform everything. And the last thing I want to say that knowledge is power, and do not underestimate power of your advocacy. So we all say, oh, what's my text going to make a difference? Well, I think if you all add up, it makes a difference. So do not underestimate that, because as a physician, I can only do so little. That's a fact. I can, fix your tumor, but that's usually not enough, as you know. So there is more that can be done, but we are only a little part of the whole puzzle or the whole problem. And I think associations like MRF and industry, we all have to work together to solve it. So that's, I think, is what's happening here, and I'm therefore delighted to participate in it. And thanks for choosing Cleveland, which is my home now for so many years. Thank you very much and welcome.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Singh, and thank you so much to the Cleveland Clinic and Cole Eye Institute for their partnership. It has been such a wonderful planning process. So thank you all, and we really look forward to kicking off the day. So next, I'm going to invite our patient panelists and caregiver panelists to come up to the podium and find your seats, and we're going to get started. We have some pre-planned questions for the panelists. And then we'll open it up to the audience. So think of some good questions. Try not to stump them, but we'll let them get comfortable, and then we'll get started. No, let's wait. Okay, so our patient panel and caregiver panel is really to set the tone for the day, because we're bringing the patient voice to everything that we do, from the researchers to the clinicians to the advocacy. Everything we do is for the patients, and we want to bring their voice to the forefront today, and that's why we're starting here. So I'm going to ask each panelist to introduce themselves and just share a little bit about what brings you here today, and then we'll get into our questions. Rich, do you want to start?
Sure.
If you could talk into the mic so people online can hear you.
So first of all, I'm here with my wife, Mary, from the Boston area. And we went to the conference last year, and we thought you guys did a superb job, absolutely superb. And I guess I also want to say thank the planning committee for scheduling this on the weekend that the Red Sox are in town. So very helpful for that. My wife, Mary, was diagnosed 2 years ago. 2 years ago. She's in the high-risk category. It has not metastasized. We're very lucky. And I'm also lucky in that as a caregiver, I'm retired, and I can spend the time to assist my wife. But just speaking at the breakfast table this morning with Ken and with Bob, excuse me, thank you. Both of those families have young kids, and they're working full time. And I think the challenge for them and the caregivers is just that much more. In our own world, where I'm retired, I've got time and availability to assist my wife, but it's not lost on me the difficulties that many of the rest of you have because of different situations.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ed Sandell, and I'm here with my wife, Rosanna. She's my caregiver. So my story goes back really about 25 years ago. I started with I had a tumor around my pituitary gland, and it grew. It was benign. It grew, and it in that area is the optic nerve, and it pressed on the optic nerve, killed the blood vessels, and I lost part of the vision in my right eye. So fast forward to last June, I was getting an eye exam and learned that I had something going on inside my eye. Went to a retina specialist. He did some scans and found out that there was this uveal melanoma going on. which I didn't realize because I couldn't really see out of that eye. So anyway, we ended up here at the Cleveland Clinic. Dr. Singh is my doctor, and I thank God every day for his expertise and for this place, because they immediately said the best thing for you is to remove the eye, which they did. And then, so that's why I'm here today. I've had several scans since and cancer free, so I'm hoping to have the same results as some of you. So. Thank you.
My name is Darlene, and I'm here with my husband. And about a month after my 50th birthday is when I was diagnosed. So that was back in 2009. Dr. Singh actually was the doctor that diagnosed me in the emergency room at Cole Institute. So we've had the pleasure of having him be our doctor. And I had an enucleation as well. Mine was medium to large when they found it, and it was real near the optic nerve. So it was a week later, I had the enucleation, and that went very well. Dr. Singh was my surgeon, and I had the low risk of the two types. So I was very fortunate with that, and I did not have any metastasis. Thank God. And so I'm 16 years out. This May 9th will be 16 years since my surgery. So I'm doing very well. Thank you.
So my name is Cindy Schultz, and I am the two-time ocular melanoma patient at this point. I was originally diagnosed in 2002, so I was a very young patient at the time. I have little kids and a brain cancer diagnosis all at the same time. We treated the first tumor. It sit very close to my optic nerve, my central vision, so the doctors did not want to do plaque therapy on me. So we did TTT on the first tumor. Thought we got it all, thought everything was fine. 9 years later, in April of 2012, I was diagnosed with a second tumor. Second tumor was coming out of the first tumor, so they're somehow related, though it's mutated from the first tumor. For the same reasons we didn't want to do plaque on the first tumor, we did not want to do plaque on the second tumor. So we ended up starting with PDT and did PDT on the second tumor. I spent 4.5 years in active cancer treatment with the second tumor. It was a lot harder to kill. So we did lots of multiple treatments of PDT. It finally stopped working. We switched over to a green argon laser and did several treatments with that. And then I started losing additional vision. I've lost about 1/3 of the vision in the eye from the original cancer treatment with TTT, but I started losing vision on the other side. And with the tumor stacked, it didn't make sense. And so the doctors kind of have a, we don't know what's going on in their moment. And so we've stopped cancer treatment at this point, and we are very much in I go in every 2 months to figure out, is the tumor dead or alive, because they can't really tell. So we're hanging out in that realm, and I will be there for the rest of my life, going in every 2 months and having them check, because they just can't tell what's going on in there. But my kids have grown up, so I've got to see my kids grow up and everything else. So I feel very fortunate that I've managed to live with it for as long as I have.
Morning, I'm Jonathan Davis or John, either one works. My history with ocular melanoma actually goes back before I had this stuff. My daughter was in kindergarten participating in a kind of it was a half-day kindergarten. And after they went to the library, did some stuff with this teacher. And after a year of that, at the end of that, my wife said, this teacher's going to retire and stop doing this. I said, really? How come? She's so good at it. Well, she's got eye cancer. I was like, eye cancer? You can get cancer in your eye? Who knew that was a thing, right? And then fast forward like 6, 7 years later, I was diagnosed in Thanksgiving of 2013 and ended up doing the brachytherapy. I've had 1,000 things done to my eye. If anybody, I can bore you with the stories of every possible thing that can happen with an eye has happened with my eye, to the point now where I don't see out of that eye. Based on the fact that with the biopsy that I was in a high risk group, Dr. Hovland in Denver recommended I go see Dr. Sato in Philadelphia, who he'd met who was doing some interesting adjuvant therapy things, which I started on. And he had a lot of good data saying that, it doesn't cure you, but postpones, depresses the curve for when metastasis can show up. So I made it almost 5 years before the first metastasis showed up. At the 4.5-year point, 7 years ago, this last February, I ended up with a liver tumor. I did RF ablation on. Another liver tumor came 6 months later that I did RF ablation on. Made it about another year or something before 3 or 4 tumors showed up in the liver. Went and did a trial out in Philadelphia where I did immunoembolization, moved on to immunotherapy that followed that up with Ipi-Nivo, if anybody's familiar with that, which I'm back on now, long story. And then moved on to just taking the nivolumab for the next 3 years. And that was the end of the trial. Got off the drugs for a couple months, had some other indications of tumors. And so I started back on the immunotherapy, including now I've done, I think, including last month, I think I'm at about 14 brain tumors. There's been the half a dozen tumors in and around the liver. And then last year, about this time, I did a lung tumor. So I've had the trifecta so far out of the bones and the lymph nodes and stuff like that. But when they tell you, the risk is in liver and then lungs and then brain, I've worked with all of those things. So if there's any message I've gotten, the reason I'm here is just to say, if you end up with metastatic disease, it's not necessarily a death sentence. I mean, it is a death sentence, but it's not an immediate death sentence. Let's put it that way. There is hope if you stay on top of your scans and you do the right things and get things treated, that you can go for quite a while. And I've now had the pleasure of, I set goals to see my youngest daughter graduate from high school, my oldest daughter graduate from college, and my youngest daughter graduated from college, which happened about a year ago. And so now I've set a new goal of seeing my youngest graduate from vet school, which is 3 years away. So there is hope. Let's put it that way.
And thank you all for being up here and sharing your vulnerability and your stories with us. We're going to get started with some questions. So we're going to start with you, Darlene, to talk about what types of things you did when you initially got diagnosed to help you process this diagnosis.
So one thing that I had done was when I was in the recovery room, right after I had the eye removed, a very specific desire came on my heart that I could share some of the things that I learned just even in that week. And then it turned out to be, longer. But I'm not much of a reader, but God put it on my heart that I could write a book and share some of the things through some of the stuff that I learned. And for 10 years, that desire never went away. And and what really helped me was that the book is about basically when things are going well, you don't always realize how good things are. And sometimes when you go through something negative, and in my case, it was that, it could be anything. It could be financial ruin, death of a loved one. It could be anything. But that sometimes when you go through those darker times, it illuminates how good you really have it. And for me, it was so crystal clear. I mean, and I wanted to share that. And the book is called Hidden in Plain Sight. So all the good things were hidden when my life was very stable for 50 years. And then that instability and that loss of equilibrium really rocked my world. And it really helped me because I was working on trying to write. I didn't know what I was doing. And that sort of took some of the positive focus and took it off, so I wasn't wallowing in it like the negative and the fear and the anxiety and the uncertainties and everything. So and 10 years later it took exactly 10 years, but when I turned 60 and I was 10 years cancer free, it came out in 2019. So that really helped me a lot to process some of the negative things that I was feeling and to focus on how good life is and was for me. So
thank you, Darlene. If people would like to talk to you about your writing, is it okay if they
absolutely
talk to you? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so Cindy, I'm going to turn to you because you were diagnosed as a young adult. So I wanted to ask you, how has being diagnosed as a young adult changed your perspective and priorities?
So I think when I was diagnosed, I had little kids. Not something I'd ever thought about being a cancer patient at 30. And so I think it took a while to process, but my kids were so young, there was no way to ever explain this to them. And so it became, how do I keep going? What do I want for my life? What do I want for their lives? So that they can grow up and not be fearful of cancer and feel like mom's going to disappear on them tomorrow and things like that. So it really became a set of priorities of, how do I want to live my life and how do I want them to remember me? Because you never know how much time you have. And so a lot of it became time with the kids. Let's go explore. Let's go do stuff. Let's go enable them to feel like they can live their life and not be stuck just because of mom. And that if I lose my vision or whatever, they have those memories of the things we did. And they have a lot of those these days. You know, I've got 2 kids out of high school and college, and they're adulting on their own. And it really just reframed where I wanted my life and my priorities to be.
Thanks, Cindy. Ed, we're going to turn to you and talk about low vision, especially for this community who have potentially also had enucleation or have low vision due to their tumor or the treatment that they received. How do you manage low vision or without an eye, and how does your vision impact you in your everyday life?
So I guess the way I would answer that is, since I started out 24 years ago with reduced vision due to the other tumor that I had, I started to learn about low vision kind of at that point. You don't realize what it's going to mean to you, and you start encountering things like somebody's on my right side and I bump into them, for example. I mean, that just happens regularly. If I'm driving a car, yeah, I do drive a car, so I wonder how dangerous I am. But you have to turn your head and look a lot more to the right because there's just nothing there. And then, come along last June, and the decision to remove my eye, which I really believe was the right one. Now I have no vision there. So, about right here is when I stopped seeing peripherally. And so, the same thing happened. So I've kind of learned over 25 years how to deal with that. And so now, little things, well, even then, little things like somebody throws a ball to you, well, you don't have that depth perception. So that, it's like, whoa, don't do that, kind of thing. So it's just little things like that. But overall, thank God we have 2 eyes, because, if I ask anybody out here, close one eye and look, and you still pretty much see the whole world. So I'm very fortunate for that. So, not sure if that answers the question.
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you. Sure, Darlene.
It's something about the vision. I had driven 10 years, after from 2009 to 19, and never got in an accident or whatever, and never got a ticket. But 6 years ago now, we did get a new vehicle, and it has the blind spot things on the side and the backup mirror, which has been a godsend, and it has helped so much. And another thing that I started having to do more recently, but like if I can't, the bottles of meds and stuff are so hard to read for anybody. But sometimes I'll take if something's real small, I'll take a picture on my phone and then blow it up. And that helps too. Something that's super small. But the blind spot things are wonderful. If you're getting a new car and, look at that feature.
Thank you. Yes, later today in your program, you will see we have 2 sessions, one on enucleation aftercare and one on low vision technology. So you can learn more about that later today and ask all your questions. We have some great folks coming in to talk about those resources. I'm going to turn over to the caregiving questions for Rich over here. And I wanted to ask you, what are the top things that you are able to do to make your partner's journey easier or allow them to focus on dealing with the disease?
Well, good or bad, I'm a little anal retentive about my life. My background is financial. I was a CPA early on, a bean counter, if you will. And for the last 35 years prior to retirement, I was a CFO. So to me, life is, I try to structure it and I organize it. And in Mary's case, I talk about low vision. She had her, I always like to say eye removed because it's easier for me to say enucleation. And I think more
got it.
people understand it, but she had her eye removed very quickly. And over time, both my wife, both my daughter and I decided it really wasn't good for her to drive. We continue to see issues with her vision, and so she hasn't driven. So I manage, I try to schedule her time or keep all of her appointments in my calendar so that I can help manage her life. And her friends are willing to come and take her on errands, and I don't want that. So I try to do that for her. I'm retired. I have the flexibility, the ability to be able to do that. And so I'm happy to. And when her friends, want to come and take her someplace, I hope they go out to lunch or for coffee so that they're not taking her for errands. So the thing that I really try to do is manage the world around her to make it a little bit easier. It's part of my nature, whether she likes it or not. And hopefully she puts up with it. But it allows us to manage our lives together. And as I said earlier, we've got so much more flexibility other than so many other people in the room. It's just easy for me to do.
Thank you. One more question for you is, how do you be an advocate for Mary, especially in these appointments? What is your role?
Well, I suspect it's the same for every caregiver. You prepare for each of the doctor visits ahead of time. You review the questions that you have. You go over it together so that you're on the same page. And we all know this. When you go and you're hearing a lot of challenging information for the first time, it's absolutely critical to have an advocate in the room for you who can help listen to what the doctor or the medical technician is telling you, so that you can go over it, after the visit and interpret it and reinforce, what was said, and potentially do additional research, if need be. So not to make a pun here, but it's really good to have a second set of eyes listening.
Thank you for that. Okay, we're going to turn it over to John. And John, with what you shared with us, it seems like there have been a lot of ups and downs and scans and different types of treatments. So how do you deal with the continuous ups and downs and additional diagnoses?
That's an interesting and tough question. I'd be lying if I said it didn't affect me, but I try not to let it affect me. And I guess what I mean by that is, the first time you get the cancer diagnosis, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I've got cancer. There's all these things that flood into your brain and stuff happens. And you're like, okay, but there's hope. And then it's like, maybe I won't have metastasis. And then that comes, and it's like, it's kind of like that first diagnosis all over again. It's as probably more significant than the first one, because after the first one, you realize, well, this might not necessarily impact me. I might be able to save my vision. I might not ever have other cancer come back. And then you get through that, and the next one comes, and you end up on this kind of, roller coaster where your life gets upended, and that settles back down into some sense of normalcy, and then it gets upended again, and it settles back down. And over time, what I've found is that by taking deliberate actions, things like setting goals, keeping your head up and looking to what's next, and how do I, deal with this thing, those upsets become less over time, to the point where now, like I said, 14 brain tumors. This last one that I treated about a month ago. And honestly, when I went in, I still go into every scan expecting it to be clear. It's like, this is, it's just nothing's gonna happen. I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna get the scan done, everything's gonna be great. And then it isn't. And it used to be, it went from that big thing down to, okay, that's a little disappointing, but let's deal with it. But I can honestly say this last one was like, okay, it didn't even faze me anymore. And I liken it to, if you're living life on a large ship, a cruise ship someplace, and the boat hits rough waters, and if you're subject to seasickness like I am, you can start feeling ill, and you can lie in your room, and the waves carry you through, focusing on your how you feel ill, and not you ended up in a spiral where the more you think about it, the more ill you feel. And I think it's like deliberately coming up to the edge of a boat and looking out at the horizon. That's where if you're familiar with seasickness, they tell you, go look at the horizon. It levels everything out in your brain, and it allows you to start feeling better. So you're not going to control the waves. You're not going to control the ship. You are in control of what you do when the seasickness comes and the waves come. It will upset your life. It doesn't have to upset your existence, right? So I would find myself having work would become kind of a fog, let's say at first metastatic diagnosis. And it took me 2, 3, 4 weeks of being at work and going through the motions and looking out and trying to steady look at the horizon and steady the motion in my head to the point where I could work my way out of that. And it involved thinking about other people who've got it worse. This is not the worst thing to hit me. Other people have survived this. I heard the stories at these things. This is doable. I just have to look at conquering the problem or the issue that's in front of me and not let it adversely affect me to the place where I'm going to be in a spiral. And there was a point at which, to be honest, I was preparing to die. And what I discovered was it's easier to prepare to die than it is to figure out how to live with this. And I had to make a deliberate decision to figure out that it's okay to have hope to live and exist in that threat of dying. It's a weird place to be where you're both planning. You need to plan and prepare for the inevitable, but at the same time, you need to prepare for living and doing the living, because as people have said here, you've got kids, you've got family, there are other people to share the story with and things to help that can turn this what would otherwise be a curse into a blessing. And there's ways to do that. You just have to find out what those are for you and go do those things.
Thank you, John.
Can I just add, I've now had the pleasure of chatting with John on 3 or 4 occasions. And as I said to him last night, he really is our idol. Everything that he's been through is, and just being here today is wonderful. And I just hope like hell that we're going to see you in the Guinness Book of World Records someday.
I say, and I think Dr. Singh mentioned it, you don't have to live forever. You just have to live until the next best thing comes, right? And so that's the hope that I took on this thing, especially learning about all the research that's being done and all the doctors and researchers that are working so hard to make this not a burden. So don't worry about living forever, because the next big thing's around the corner. If you live till then, there's another treatment, there's something else to be done. And that's hopeful for the patient.
Yeah, I'd like to add that, I agree that with Rich, Jonathan's our hero. I want to aspire to be as look at things as positively as he does. We were on a Zoom call a month ago, and Jonathan had to leave because he was having a treatment. He came back to our support group to be a part of our group. And I don't know, it just says a lot to me. So nice to know you.
I hope that everyone finds their horizon, like John shared his metaphor and what that means for you and how to settle your mind. We'll talk more about that throughout the weekend. So I'm going to open it up to the audience for questions that you may have for our panelists.
Thank you. Thank you for a great panel. I don't think, is the mic on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think we may have a new career for you, Jonathan, which is a motivational speaker. I'm serious. It really was amazing to listen to your story. It's so inspiring. I have a question for those of you on the panel who've had enucleation. What are the different options for the prosthetic eye? And if so, how did you make those decisions and navigate them?
So for me, first of all, the decision for enucleation was relatively easy because of everything that happened previously. So that turned out very successfully. And you learn about the fact that, the muscle gets attached to the implant. And so the implant actually moves, which is like, I was very happy to hear that's a part of the process. So then I go to learn, okay, well, where do I go to get a prosthetic eye? And we live in the Buffalo area. And there's only one person that does this, and she's phenomenal ocularist. And so we end up going to her, and she creates this magnificent thing, which just, I look in the mirror sometimes and just go, really? Is that's perfect, right? I mean, so she did a phenomenal job. So I guess it depends on where you live too, what your options are. For us, we only had the one option, and it turned out to be a really good one. So
Yeah, we had, there was a local, Dr. Singh had referred a ocularist that lives like 2 cities away, and he was phenomenal. He's worked for years with vets and things like that, and done all kinds of stuff. Years and years of, working with patients and stuff. So he was phenomenal, and everything was done for me locally. So I was very, very lucky. And he was a perfectionist. So the first eye he made, he wasn't quite happy with it. So he made me another one for free. He didn't even charge me because but he never took a picture, which I thought was weird, that he just had it in his head. And he even got like the brown specks in my eye. And that just amazed me that he never had to take a picture. He just looked at me and, yeah, so I had a good experience with that. I never take the eye out, very rarely. I sleep with it, and it doesn't cause me any discomfort or anything, so.
Any other questions?
Miriam,
Mary?
can I just share something real quick?
Sure.
It's kind of a funny story, I guess. So yeah, the prosthetic actually is it's like a contact. It sets on top of the implant. And so it just stays in like Darlene said. But so anyway, so I get a little bit of, I don't know, I got to wipe my eye out to clean it. And so I was wiping my eye over the sink one day, and I kind of flicked it, and the eye popped out and started bouncing around in the sink. And I go, this is a $4,000. I'm like, I want it to break, anyway. So it was kind of a funny moment.
You gotta find the humor, right, Ed?
I just wanted to connect with my other friends here who have had an eye removed, and how did you feel prepared or ill prepared for the aftermath of that and making adjustments? I felt that my ocularist was really my ally. I had no clue that I was not going to have depth perception afterwards. And as fabulous as I felt my care was, I felt like I dropped off a ledge a little bit, not understanding that I might find still limitations. I mean, I was glad to give up that eye and that huge tumor. If you can say it that way, I don't mean to be flippant, but that was definitely my right decision. I had no second guessing. But how we might be better prepared for the fact that I would come and I would encounter dark steps and feel like I was sliding down a mountain, all of those things that were unexpected were a little jarring. So I wonder if anybody else had similar experience.
So having lived with this thing and lost vision over time, there's one thing I noticed that and nobody prepares you for this, to your point, the lack of depth of perception. And I used to play tennis and pickleball and stuff like that. And I tried doing it right away, wearing an eye patch, because whenever a ball would come at me, my brain tried really hard to interpret the information coming into that eye. And it would insert that into my processing, and I'd see two balls coming at me. And I noticed over time, and it took somewhere in the 3 to 5 year time frame before my brain adjusted from processing things, trying to understand things in 3 dimensions to figure out how to process them in 2 dimensions. And once you get past that point, and I didn't realize I was past it, I just suddenly said, I should try, and things are going better, and I should try and do some things like playing pickleball and stuff. And I realized that my brain had converted from processing things where I'm used to seeing things in 3 dimensions, but in 2 dimensions. Relative motion became important. And so there is hope that over time, your brain, and it's amazing. I think when you do this when you're older, I had a friend who lost an eye when she was like 6, and she's always had it that way and just always knew how to do it. When you've lived for 50 or 60 years and then you lose the eye, it's a harder thing to overcome. But at the same time, your brain is an amazing tool, and it will figure out how to deal with that. And at some point in time, you will see that you're better at doing those things than you used to be. I still, with light only coming into one eye, the amount of light to read something, see something is a lot different. I use the flashlight on my phone a lot to be able to see stuff. But, outside of that, just in terms of the binocular vision, it is possible to adjust, and your brain will get better at it over time.
Can I say something here? So obviously, I'm hearing there's never enough discussion or preparation for anything, right? I get that. But the fact of the matter is, patient comes in, we make a diagnosis, and we say, oh, get this done, the surgery will be after tomorrow or next week, the CAT scan, you need blood work, get anesthesia, get it, and 1,000 things. We all get caught up in those logistical stuff. And we say, oh, this blood will happen, or I will be removed. It's a big deal. It impacts your life forever. But in half an hour, 45 minutes, even an hour, for example, you can only cover so many things. Suppose I want to tell you 10 facts, and people can only remember 3 facts. So what I'm hearing, and I'm going to do that after the practice, starting Monday, after first consultation, you say go home. And before your next procedure, whenever the procedure is, you're going to do a virtual visit for half an hour, just to go over some of the things that you may not have registered or may have been overlooked. Either way, we have a list that we cover critical points. Obviously, we miss things, or you have captured them. So it's no blame here, but I think we need to adapt. So I'm going to do that. Now we have virtual visits. I want to do that 30 minutes. First consultation and different procedure virtual visit. Maybe my nurse practitioner will do it. Somebody will do it.
Would this be beneficial for you all? Would this be
Oh, yeah.
beneficial? Yes.
Yeah.
We have time for 2 more questions. Anyone have a question for the panelists? Ian does.
Yeah, this probably tags along with a lot of the questions that have been asked already. And I'd like to ask each of you, because I mean, it's a rare cancer. There's a whole lot of information out there that's really negative and overwhelming if you start exploring Google. For each of you, what was the best resource that you came across that was most useful? for you or your partner, the person you're caring for?
That's a great question.
So I guess I'll start. I started because it started in 2002 for me. There was virtually nothing out there. And at that point, it was almost completely reliant on the doctor at that point. It was Ken Hovland, who's amazing, and you can find papers from this man back to the 60s, who had a ton of experience and a ton of knowledge. And then now I'm with Peter Hovland, who's Ken's son, who took over the practice. He's been amazing. He still goes back to his dad. But outside of that, it's researching what's out there and looking more at the technical side of it and not so much of the commentary at times of people, because cancer itself is very scary. Paul's been amazing with a lot of this too, and supporting through it and doing the research and things like that too. But the research is key, but I found keeping it more to the technical papers and less about the emotional was a whole lot easier and better information in the long run. And then taking that back to the doctor and being able to answer the questions and bounce it back and forth.
I'd like to add to that, that initially, obviously, the doctor, Dr. Singh was my doctor, and his staff, and they were extremely helpful. They follow up visits and answer any questions. It was tremendous. But I got to say, this group, and again, the bad pun, has been eye-opening, because I wouldn't have known any of this. I mean, listening to Jonathan, Cindy, Darlene, whatever, everybody's stories is amazing. And, mine's one small story as part of it, but hearing everybody else's story, it puts perspective on the whole thing. So this group has been phenomenal. I really appreciate the fact that you guys are here.
When Dr. Singh diagnosed me, one thing he did say is, don't go on Google. Don't Google this. And I did not. I am a nurse. I'm an RN, and but I did not Google. And I listened to what he told me, and he sent me home with some books. But for me, I tried to just. It was the main thing. The decision was to have the surgery, and I kind of that was enough for me right then to focus on. I'm going to have the surgery, and I didn't. I just kind of and then it was what kind do I have? I tried to just focus on. And then did it metastasize and each thing like that without kind of looking at all the stuff about it. I think that would have been overwhelming for me. I don't know, but he did say that. Don't Google this.
I took it one step further and didn't look at really anything. I looked up some technical information to Cindy's point about the diagnosis, but my wife took on all the research stuff, which took it out of my brain, allowed me to focus on just the healing and the dealing with the stuff, to the point where I had no idea it was as deadly as it was. I remember when I had the first metastasis and she insisted we go sit down with the financial advisor and talk about some stuff. I'm like, yeah, okay. We went down, and she had been on these Facebook groups, where it's kind of like this. You learn, you get to know people, and people come in and out of that stuff. There's a lot of wheat from chaff to be separated in those things. But there was a lady on there who had lived for 10, ultimately lived for 13 years post metastasis. And she just would come tell me, there's a lot of hope on this thing. If you just stay on top of this stuff, you live for a long time. She didn't ever put specific numbers on it. And when we went to this financial advisor and trying to figure this stuff out, and I said, well, how bad can it be, right? Because that lady, she's gone for 10 years or whatever. She said, well, most people don't live a year after metastasis. And that was the first I had heard that statement. To the point where I was like, oh, okay, this is much more serious than I thought. I may have less than a year to live, which started kind of my little bit of a downward spiral. But the point being that if you can stay out of, I agree, if you can stay out of the negativity that exists in that information, go to places like this, to the sources where you've got doctors, and these forums where we're getting the frontline information from the doctors and researchers who are doing the most work. I think that gives you the most value in terms of understanding what the future has for us in the event you get metastasis, or in the event somebody who gets diagnosed with this disease, that kind of thing.
I would just add, despite Dr. Singh's appropriate recommendation not to Google it, I had a similar advice from my brother-in-law, who happens to be the chief of surgery at the University of Florida system. He said the same thing when he understood the seriousness of this disease. But both Mary and I Googled it and we researched it, and we went to the right places for sources of qualified, information. And it was incredibly helpful, such that I recall we went in for our first visit. After our first visit with our oncologist, we felt as if we could have given, the same, discussion that he did. Everything was very familiar because we had researched it, we understood it, and we